Welcome to the Data Coffee Break podcast. I'm Marc.
And I'm Christian.
If you are passionate about data like us, take a seat, relax, and join us to our coffee break where we discuss all things data.
And remember, there are no filters, no PR.
It's just a real life experience. So let's begin. Sorry, I'm a bit dry today for a start.
You see how all this is edited, Natalia?
Yeah, all is very edited, like clearly.
Yeah, I am the one that goes edited. No, it's okay. I would like to get started by introducing our guest because we're super excited. Because today we have with us an experienced associate director on data science with a history of working in the financial services industry and building established delivery teams. She has also worked as a data scientist in companies like Supla or Granger, and also as a senior lead data science in companies like Tide, where she quadrupled the data science team. She holds an integrated master's degree from the University of Cambridge, which is the highest award for undergraduate studies in engineering in the UK. And in my opinion, she is one of the most accomplished persons to be in this podcast. And with us today, we have Natalia Koupanu. Welcome.
Oh my God, wow.
Thank you for joining.
No, thank you for the invitation. Honestly, I'm very glad to be here.
I have a quick question. What is integrated master?
Yeah, I was going to ask Christian because he did some stalking on LinkedIn, it seems like.
Very much.
But basically, I did a 4-year course in Cambridge, and as part of it, you get an MA and also an engineering, a master in engineering. So I guess that's what you call an integrated master.
Both, yeah, okay.
Okay,
nice.
That's actually quite interesting.
Thanks.
I mean, and you were talking about stalking LinkedIn just for every one of our guests that have come here or feature guests. This is what we do.
LinkedIn is a main source of information.
I know. It's really interesting to see that you started pretty much, with data after you graduated, right? You went into the data science field back then when you finalized your studies. I mean, for our audience today, it will be good to hear about how was your journey, just how it was for you to start in the field, right? Versus how do you see that today with the Gen AI boom?
Yeah, I guess for my journey, when I was at Cambridge, I kind of fell in love with information engineering along the way. And I did the summer internship, and I was working in an engineering consulting firm in New York at the time. And they had an R&D department, and someone there was telling me about their machine learning project. And I think it was about predicting the movement of soil. And we had like a deep discussion about machine learning, and he kind of got me excited on ML and the potential of the future. And he was very right. So after graduating, I decided to turn my minor in information engineering into a full-blown career, I guess. Now with Gen AI, I guess it's easier in a way to learn some things around data science, some practices, but at the same time, the workflows will change a lot with it. So it is also challenging because when I started working in the data departments, we had to figure out all these different practices and workflows. And now I think we will need to reinvent those workflows and practices again with generative AI.
And when you say with AI, it's easier to learn, is it because there is so much like courses, YouTube videos and guideline practices, tips that we can find around, or is it from other point of view?
Definitely, there are a lot of materials out there, and a lot of people are now into the field and they're sharing their experiences, and so you have a lot of material there. At the same time, you can also use generative AI as a teacher. But although you need to be careful, but you can experiment a lot and copy paste a lot of code, figure out what's happening, use generative AI to explain your code and all of that. So you can use it as an educational tool. but also being careful with like the accuracy that you can get from it. So maybe you need to have that in mind whenever you try to use generative AI for those purposes.
I think if I go back to 5 years ago, even not that back, we have AI already, right? AI already existed. You were quite experienced on that, Natalia, and then you done forecasting, you are doing like regression testing and so on. How do you see that? Let's say that knowledge relevant when you go into Gen AI? Because we were talking about this is easier now, but I feel like you cannot really remove the fact that you need to have some sort of baseline or background on ML or AI, or am I wrong here thinking like you need to have some basics to really get into the Gen AI conversation?
I think it's important to have some understanding, because the models at the stage that they are now, they can still create something that doesn't make sense. So, for example, I have seen the generative AI giving, I don't know, like scaling, for example, unique identifiers. And essentially, because of that, you need to understand that like what you're doing is correct, and kind of be like the teacher in a way to the machine too, and saying if the answer is correct.
Nice. Yeah. I think I used to have this manager or director in our previous job, which says creating a model is more of a scientific and academic project, but productionalizing, understanding what MLOps is a complete different thing, right? I guess before jumping into that, could you define MLOps, Natalia, to us what MLOps is and why is this important before I go into that conversation?
Yes, of course. So MLOps tries to standardize the process from creating a new model to bringing that model to real life and delivering real value to real people. It is interdisciplinary, so you should imagine a three-circle Venn diagram. One is data science, the other is software, and the third one is DevOps. And MLOps is in the intersection of those three circles. And someone said before, and I really like that definition, they said that MLOps is not just putting a model there once, but the act of putting N+1 models. And I do agree with the person that said that modeling is one challenge, but putting things in production and making sure that things are working well after you put your model in production is also very important.
Often we imagine engineers and data scientists quite isolated in their role. Like when you work in MLOps, you end up interacting with a lot of different teams, I guess, to make sure this work in production, this take into account what the team who developed the model works, but also like take into consideration what the business users, or more like the front end team or other teams that can be involved for the delivery of this one, right?
Yeah, I'm more of a fan of cross-functional teams in general.
Okay.
So I like it a lot when data scientists work together with ML engineers or data engineers. And I think sometimes it's quite naive to think that you can just have a data science team without data engineers, but still have loads of models in production. And you just don't have enough full stack ML professionals in the job market. And that's why in most of the cases, you will need both disciplines in a way.
Yeah. So do you think like for some people exploring career in this space, like they should, I don't want to force people into a role, but where are the gaps, I think, from your point of view in terms of like roles in this kind of data, AI, ML space? Is it more on the MLOps side where you see a lot of gaps, where there is not a lot of qualified professionals?
That's a good question. Probably yes. I think data science is also an area where it will still exist, but MLOps is definitely an area where you will need more attention, because you will have a lot of MLOps challenges with productionizing AI and larger models.
That's really interesting, because I mean I feel like in order to work with these LLMs, feels like it's not that different from existing AI and ML practices. I mean, do you still need to train it? Do you still need to test? You need to go through all of these processes. Which is all of these gaps become relevant here.
So I agree with you. Some workflows will still remain and will still be relevant. Even with prompt engineering and all of that, you will still need to answer questions like how do we operationalize it? How do we make it scalable? How do we keep 100% uptime on models when people interact with them? And essentially, you might have different tools to do these sort of things, but you will still need to find solutions for these concerns and apply some of the principles that we used to do before, like unit testing and all of that.
Actually, I mean, you are someone that has, experience both with the AI. I'm going to air quote here traditional AI and Gen AI at the moment. What is your view of MLOps going forward or in the future? Like, how would you see it? Do you see it evolving? It would be interesting to see your point of view as someone that is experienced and also a practitioner in these technologies.
Yeah, I think some applications will combine some old type of modeling together with the new models that came out recently. So what do I mean by that? For example, you might have an LLM handling the front end, and essentially its goal will be to understand the intent of the user, and they will handle the final output. But in between, you might have some more traditional or classical data retrieval or role-based systems or ML applications, which you do in between, and then in the end, you pass them through the LLM to generate a more user-friendly output. So some of the practices that we had in the past will still be relevant, I think. In terms of like how else MLOps can change, well, you might have like a special fine-tuned LLM that kind of like helps you generate code and all of that. At the moment, it's not very accurate. But and you see libraries like the Gorilla, for example, that has fine-tuned like a model or it used like a training data set from, I think, towards TensorFlow and Hugging Face, and they're planning to do the same with Kubernetes. And as a concept, it's interesting, and all the demo examples work really well. But if you try to use it for other examples, you won't be very happy with the result. So, for example, it works really well with translation from English to French. But if you ask it to do a certain type of classification or to use a particular functionality within TensorFlow, it won't do a great job.
That's really interesting because that brings back like a point we touched before. Like when working with MLOps, you end up being the glue between different teams. And I remember we discussed that with another guest in the past, and it was around more OAI is being used in the legal industry. And this person was explaining all lawyers are becoming slowly ML engineers without knowing it. So that's quite interesting because as you explained, there is like the fine-tuning aspect and things like that. And that's where you realize bringing different individuals with different skill set and with the skill set necessary for this specific use case, this specific product you try to develop, you end up like having more, what I describe more as business users, depending on how we call them. So that's interesting on this part.
That's interesting because to Marc's point, you just mentioned there prompt engineering, right? Which, again, before 2022, I'm pretty sure it was not such a hot topic.
Never heard before that. Never heard before that. I was unaware of this of this title before.
Yeah, because I have like the few shots, zero shots prompting and all these techniques, right? I think
what is zero shots?
Yes, it would be great if Natalia, if you can give some examples of what prompt engineering for the audience, for example, to see what they can upskill themselves, because it is my understanding that this is also in favor of fine-tuning your output, right?
Yeah, so prompt engineering is a process of creating a prompt that is designed to improve the performance and essentially the output that you get, so that you get your desired output in the format that you want and all of this. I think we are still trying to figure out some standards or good techniques, but I think it's early. It's still early days, and like there will be changes as well to this as more models come out or when new updates come out. Few shot and zero shot learning. Essentially, what you do is you allow models to generalize from a small set of examples, or even infer knowledge about unseen classes. So that's what zero shot is, and you can potentially use Gen AI to create some labels as well, or a small data set. And now, how you can like different prompts like a data scientist could use to upskill themselves will be maybe you can write prompts that help you debug your code or explain your code. A lot of us don't like adding comments, or we're not.
Yeah.
If we find boring the documentation, so it can escalate that process for you. You can even like optimize your code and make it more simplified. And you can do loads of things. You can write tests. Loads of data scientists actually skip the test. So I think now they won't have an excuse for this. And maybe you can use it as a partner when during brainstorming. So, for example, when you try to think of features that you want to include in your model, and things like this that are more on the ML.
So that make me think about how to identify what is generated by AI and what is not. You gave a very specific example, which is asking AI to give you like ideas of new tags or parameters for your models. I mean, those one, obviously, we can rightfully think it's difficult to track if it was generated by AI or not. But is there like tools at least, or new guidelines in a way for data scientists to be able to flag automatically what has been generated by AI, or for the general public to be a bit more aware of that? I think it's fairly product or model specific, but I don't know if you have any thoughts or experience on that, maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of data scientists would like to do that as a side project and kind of have a classifier. GPT actually tries to do that, and I think it was a student that tried to create that and then turn it into a startup.
Wow. And
originally, it was just for like figuring out whether you cheat on essay exams or not, because this is GPT is used a lot on creating home essays. But basically, it's quite hard because the AI generates quite human-like responses, and it was trained to be like that. And I think even ChatGPT 0, which they managed to get funding, but it's not perfect. And I think one of the areas that they're doing bad is it can get tripped up on non-native English speakers, because sometimes their syntax can be more repetitive. So you might think that it's actually an AI writing the text. And I think OpenAI also tried to do an AI classifier, but they shut it down because they were criticized on the low accuracy. It will be a quite difficult AI detector, and building an AI detector tool, it will be quite difficult, but in a way, I can understand why we might need to have something like that in the future.
Yeah, I remember reading about this. Someone tried to do like an identifier of generated text, and I think Hamlet the whole novel was actually flagged as generated. The reason is because it was trained on that one, right? So maybe Hamlet was used as part of the training dataset. So yeah, to what you mentioned there, Natalia, it's actually quite important, right? And I actually think I would like to move us away from let's say the practitioner side. How do we do things? Because you're also quite a good thought leader. What is the risk on hallucinations and productionalizing these sort of LLMs?
That's quite interesting. I think some ex-Google employee created like a framework around that. He has worked on Gen AI in the past and in the Google translation project. I think his name was Barak Turovsky. I really like his framework because it made sense to me at least. So he visualizes two axes, one being the fluency, so having either high or low fluency models. And on the other axis, you have the accuracy, high or low accuracy. And different use cases will have different stakes. So you will have use cases where low stakes and low accuracy is okay, and other cases where you don't need high fluency, but you need the accuracy. So, for example, writing a poem or a song or a book, having hallucinations might be a good thing. It might make a poem more creative or more different. But in cases where you need to take a business decision that involves a lot of money, then you will need high accuracy, or in healthcare cases, you will need a high accuracy. So it depends. Those hallucinations matter depending on how severe the downside is, essentially. And in the space of creative, like design, entertainment, and so on, you might be more flexible with the accuracy that you get back. Maybe in the future it will get a lot better and the hallucinations will not be there. But for now, I think we need to be quite pragmatic on the applications that Gen AI can be used and on the things that it can solve.
I mean, we started to see articles saying like, okay, and so everyone's job is going to be replaced. Initially, we're thinking like maybe there is more some industries or type of role that could be impacted, but actually, from what you say, it make me think now is more the type of job in the role. Obviously, some roles are very focused on the very specific type of job, but type of job in the role will be more transformed. Obviously, I don't know if it's something you see.
I agree with that. Obviously, like people in entertainment, like copywriters or song composers and all of that might be affected, but probably you will still also need some of those to make the end result a lot better. But as you said, like it will change the way that we do things. So we can use the AI in a way that improves our efficiency, so we can do things a lot faster than before, or we can remove some admin work from our life. I think another area that will be impacted a lot is the customer interactions, because essentially an LLM can easily extract information. Yeah, so it will be a lot easier to understand what the customer wants to do and help them. So customer support might be an area where LLMs are used, because I've been in many situations where I'm trying to change my ticket and I can't get to the opportunity to speak to a person, and all I can do is just go through like a simple bot experience, and it will direct me to a frequently question answer page, and that won't solve my problem. So I think that experience will be better, and like loads of industries have this, they need to have customer support. I don't know. What's your thought on that one?
No, when you start to speak about that, I don't know. Yeah, so it came back to my mind, like in many situations, you ending up in a speaking to a chatbot where it is extremely dumb. And the only thing you want is to ask, like, please put me with a live agent. And when you're with a live agent, you end up having a very long and lengthy conversation when you explain every single step you explain to someone else or to the chatbot. So to your point, yeah, I think there is a big value where we can get to a point where this is going to be massively helping, at least for the end user, where in this case, there is no real involvement. If you think about like final client, there is no case of saving time for money in the job, but in the sense like it's going to save time for interaction, for little things like that, and that's going to be highly beneficial. I don't know, I had like an epiphany. I had a thought about those use cases.
I agree. The customer satisfaction will be better because experience can't be improved. Well, what it needs to be done there, though, in order for this to happen, is you will need to the LLM will need to have access to your own data set, so that it can have all the knowledge to reply to you in terms of, how to change your ticket or how to get a refund or all of that.
That's why we see such a now a rise of solutions, like to be able to develop LLM specifically to your business, to your internal corpus of information, etc., because that has to be like extremely tailored and specific to what the business is doing. Definitely. Very out of context question. Think about ways to be smarter in my daily life, which is not only for work but also personal life. Like you were touching the point, like for companies to be able like go to the point to exhaust any aspect they can leverage that, like tips. Or you as a professional data scientist and leader, or do you use it on the day-to-day basis, personally and maybe professionally? Very curious. I'm sure like it could be nice to take advantage of what you're doing, maybe.
I guess one example that is not data related is that we were trying to organize a barbecue, and I wanted to come up with ideas of what we can include in the menu. And I was asking GPT for that. And I even asked it for the recipe. I didn't follow it, step by step, but it was like a nice way to brainstorm with it. It was nice brainstorming with it.
I know. You see, that's a good example of becoming very productive, right? Like as I say, AI will not replace you.
Exactly.
Someone using AI will. Or I was going to ask you, we have the consumer segment, which is what the example that you gave, right? And we have also like the more business type of use cases. Do you see this sometime merging? For example, the needs for the consumer will be like, give me a recipe or create me, I don't know, like the image of a dog sitting on a chair, or translate this. But someone on the business side might ask for something a bit more specific.
I think there is
right?
good overlap. Could be.
Summarize. I don't know. It's just something that I can put here for conversation, right? Like I will not put on any of these chatbots, for example,
basically
information from the company to do the summarization.
We already have
right?
some general purpose models that can be used for generic applications. Those might not be very accurate, but they're great in fluency at the moment. Now, for more specific business applications, I think, because as you said, like for privacy concerns or security concerns, you might need to have your own fine-tuned model. You might take an open source model and you might fine-tune it on your own data, or even use indexing to connect the LLM to your own data and use it for specific tasks so that the accuracy is greater as well.
I like the aspect, point around privacy that you pointed out. Like, I know there is an article from The Economist around, like, I think the title is around generative AI could radically alter the practice of law, but it's also the aspect of, now, like, all those companies who leverage, supposedly to be open source information, realize they've been using like private information, and that all those kind of legal changes like lead very quickly to the aspect, as you pointed out, like fine-tune the model specifically for the company use case, because the data is considered as private, even if it is available on the internet. That's something I didn't realize in that aspect.
To that point, yeah, we already see cases where artists and creators are suing some companies because they feel they don't get enough credit on their work.
What's your hope, let's say, for the next year? We're in the hype. We had so much communication around the globe around, in particular, Gen AI and LLM. What's your hope for this field as like a practitioner and as a leader?
Oh, I feel this is a very deep question, but I also feel 1 year is a very short period of time. I think I do hope that we are cautious on the way that we apply AI, but also I see lots of opportunities, nice ways for AI to help humanity and even creativity. Generally, I do like learning. So I think this next 12 months will be quite interesting because there are lots of things that are coming out every day. So there are going to be a lot of learning opportunities. And it's something new, which can be exciting too. So yeah, lots of progress with caution.
I like that you're an optimistic, so that's good. Thank you so much, Natalia, for your time. And I know that we're getting to the top of the hour. So we have a question that we ask all of our guests. And of course, we are very interested in see what is the most important professional advice you have ever received that you can remember.
Really good piece of advice when you try to figure out what you want to do in your career is to ask yourself how you can be of service to your community. And the way to answer that is, before answering it, I guess you need to understand what are your skills or what are potential skills that you can gain, and what are the needs of your community right now or the market. So I think that's a quite good piece of advice, especially now.
That's really good. Very relevant. Thank you so much, Natalia. I think, as I say, like you are one of the most accomplished professionals we had in the show. And yeah, it's very clear that you have a lot of experience. So thank you.
You had some amazing guests before, but thank you very much for your kind words. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for listening to this episode. This podcast represents our views and not the ones of our employers.
Our mission at the Data Coffee Break podcast is to inform you and help you grow in this always changing data field.
Follow us and get into the conversation with the community on our LinkedIn page and Instagram.
See you next Tuesday, and until then, keep your data caffeinated.